What's going on, people? Gunsblazing back at it again. So today I wanted to do something a little different, and that is to run some experiments. Let me explain this list real quick first because it's going to go off screen in a few seconds. We have one ultra rare monster, spell, and trap in the deck. We also have one normal rarity monster, spell, and trap in the deck. So this deck is going to be testing the frequency at which cards appear. We're going to be tallying up just the number of times it appears in the starting hand, and we are not going to count the going second draw just for simplicity's sake. So why am I doing this? Well, as you may know, a lot of people in the Duel Links community are convinced that Duel Links draws are not completely randomized. There are some cards that presumably have a higher chance to be drawn than other cards, and people are suspecting that the monsters first in order, in other words, to the left of the deck list, have a higher chance of being drawn. For example, you know how those Amazoness players always seem to have Amazoness Princess in their opening hand? It's actually pretty crazy. I've had stretches of games where I witnessed endless Trap Hell Odions having Princess in the opening hand 6 games in a row, no less. Which seems a little fishy, you know? And guess what? Amazoness Princess usually is the first card in their deck list because the way the game sorts things is that ultra rares go first. Amazoness Princess is one of the few, if not the only, ultra rare monster in an Amazoness deck. So just in case you don't know what's going on right now, I am taking this deck. The deck list was shown at the beginning. I'm sorry I don't have it up here right now. The next experiment in this video will have the deck list on the screen though. But in reality, it's really quite simple. I put one Amazoness Princess in the deck, and that's an ultra rare, and one Amazoness Spy in the deck, and that's a normal rarity card. I also did the same for spells, where I put a prismatic ultra rare Gemini Spark and also a normal spell card, which I believe is 7. And then for traps, the ultra rare is Magic Drain and the normal spell card is Fate Plan. I'm mainly looking at the rarity and whether the rarity of the card affects the chance of it being drawn. I could also look at the order of the cards within the deck list, but there's a lot of confusion within that for me because it's unclear what defines the rows, because people are saying the first card in a row is more likely to get drawn. But when we talk about rows, are we talking about the rows that we see when we open up the deck list in a mobile view or in the Steam view, which are very different by the way. The Steam view has, I believe, 10 cards per line, while the phone view has only 6 cards per line. Or even possibly, maybe it just reads the entire deck as one big row. I have no idea. Either way, I'm just trying to run this experiment and see what comes up. As I said, every time the card appears in my starting hand, I'm gonna tally it off in my little notepad right there. What I'm expecting here is all the ultra rare cards will have a higher chance of being drawn than all of the normal rarity cards. And as you can see right now, that is the case. But watch the results till the end, you know, it might change up. It might change up, so don't take this as conclusive evidence yet. However, right here you can already see an insane difference in how much the ultra rare spell card is being drawn. Okay, I see you, Gemini Spark! It's almost doubling the amount of times that the normal spell card is being drawn. Now, if these results are going a little bit too fast for you to actually keep up with it and confirm if I'm, you know, doing the tallying right and I'm not just BSing you, you can slow the video down to like a slower speed, like 1/4 or 1/2, if you really don't trust me. But yeah, this is something that I really wanted to get to the bottom of, because if this game does not use a completely randomized system, then we have some problems. There's no reason that this game shouldn't have completely random draws. There's absolutely no reason that some cards should be weighted more heavily to have a higher chance of being drawn than other cards. And if there is, then at the very least, Konami should be transparent to us about it, because it really does affect the way the game is played. Some archetypes could be more consistent just because, you know, they're getting a little extra consistency by the way their deck lists are arranged. There might be alternate ways to arrange your deck list so that you get the most optimal draws, you know what I'm saying? Now, things might be getting a little on the nerdy side, but I do believe that this has to be talked about because a lot of players, well, most players are building their decks like, oh, 3 copies of this, 3 copies of that, and they're thinking that 3 copies of one card and that 3 copies of another card have the exact same probability of being drawn, which is the way it should be, but it's possible that that's not the way it actually is. So a little quick peek at the results. The monster and spell ultra rares are higher than the monster and spell normals right now, but the normal trap has appeared quite a few more times than the ultra rare trap, which is kind of interesting. And as for the number of trials this experiment did, I didn't really count. Instead, I put a time limit on it. So I went for about, I think, 45 minutes in this one. And as soon as OBS hit that 45-minute mark, that's when I stopped the experiment. So this experiment's pretty much gonna come to a close real soon, so I'm just gonna talk about the experiments. They don't change much after this. Basically, the ultra rare monster Amazoness Princess showed up about a couple more times than the normal monster. I was expecting it to be a lot more than that because of, you know, how often I've seen the Amazoness Princess being drawn in the open hand in PvP. But you know, maybe it's not enough trials to really figure that out yet. As for the spells, we see that the ultra rare spell has shown up a lot more times than the normal spell, and the normal trap has shown up a lot more times than the ultra rare trap. However, when we combine the total number of ultra rares and super rares that were drawn, we end up with 46 ultra rares drawn and 44 normal rarity cards drawn, which is pretty much, you know, there's no significant difference there. So this is suggesting that it's not the rarity of the cards that's important, but the ordering of the cards. Now what it could be suggesting is that traps at the right end of the deck list have a higher chance of being drawn, whereas for monsters and spells, the cards on the left side of the deck list are more likely to be drawn. However, I did feel that these results were kind of too close to really judge anything, you know? So I did do another experiment after this, and you will see it in a second. And I did change it up a little because in this experiment, you couldn't really tell if Amazoness Princess really had the higher chance of being drawn. You know, it was only drawn a total of 2 more times than the Amazoness Spy. So in the next one, your boy's gonna jack up the number of monsters to 3 each, so 3 princesses and 3 spies. I'm also gonna focus on traps again in the next one, so I'm gonna run 3 super rare traps and 3 normal traps. Now I'm just gonna go ahead and say the results on this next experiment were actually pretty interesting. It interested me. It really did suggest to me that these draws are being rigged and that Konami was playing us for monkeys the entire time. Anyways, as you can see, 3 ultra rares, that's Princess, 3 sages, and 3 blowpipers. That's the normal rarity card, and then a couple of rares in between, but I didn't really keep track of the rares. And then at the end of the deck list, we got 3 Queen's Pawn, super rare, and then 3 Dramatic Rescue, which is a normal rarity trap card. Again, the results are going to be interesting, but I don't want to make conclusions just on this one experiment. If anything, I want to run this again and maybe do another video on it later as an update. Or, you know, you could copy this deck list and try it out for yourself. Let me know if you get similar results. You know, if you would be so kind, if you could spare a little bit of your time. But yeah, as you can see by my little comments there in the notepad, the experiment starts off kind of even. So there's nothing really that's too ahead of the other in terms of the super rare trap and the normal trap, and then the ultra rare, super rare, and normal rarity monsters. If anything, the ultra rare was actually falling behind at the start. But as more trials came in and, you know, more of that variance was removed, you start to see something a little suspicious within the data. But again, as of right now, the ultra rare, super rare, and normal monsters are really neck and neck. They're pretty close. Same with the traps, they're kind of even here. I think Dramatic Rescue, the normal trap, pulls ahead by a bit, which falls in line with the results of the first experiment that I did. But now take a look at the monster side of things. So the ultra rares, the princesses are really starting to pour in here. By the way, for this one, I decided to switch it up and count the draw that you get if you're going second. Just keep that in mind. Just because it's more like an actual duel where, you know, if you're going second and you pick up a princess, it's pretty much the same thing as having it in your starting hand. Virtually. But yeah, here is where it started to look a little suspicious. As you can see, Princess, the ultra rare, has the most frequency of being drawn by quite a bit, and then Sage is in second place, the second rarest and the second closest to the left of the deck list, and last is the Blowpiper, which is a normal rarity card and which is closer to the end of the deck list. Now in my mind, it's starting to become a little more convincing to me that all those times that my opponent opened with Amazoness Princess in their starting hand, it wasn't just me remembering all the tilty times and not focusing on the times that they didn't open with Princess. It actually looks like Princess is getting a significant draw chance boost here. At one point, it was almost like Princess was being drawn 2 times as much as Blowpiper, which is nutty. And as for the traps, it's just going wild. Like, they keep overtaking each other. Here I picked up 3 Dramatic Rescues in my hand, which instantly gave Dramatic Rescue the lead again. But yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and say that by the end of the experiment, this is pretty much what it looked like. There was a clear distinction. There was a clear pattern going on where the rarest monster card was being drawn more times, followed by the next rarest, the super rare, which is Sage, followed by Blowpiper. I think the small variance boost could have possibly been more highlighted than when we just had one copy of each rarity. When you're running 3, that small insignificant draw chance boost could be, compounded onto each other. Now again, I said it already, but take these experiments with a grain of salt. They're not completely conclusive. They are just rough experiments. I'm definitely planning on running this second experiment again to see if this rarity curve shows up again. It could also just be the order of the cards and not actually anything to do with the rarity, but here are the numbers. The rarer the monster, the more it showed up, and again, we see the normal trap showing up more than the SR trap. Let me know what you think. Let me know your experiences on Duel Links being rigged or not. But for now, this is Nerd Blazing, signing out.
Downtown we let it go. Sunset high and our bodies low. Blood rush in a hazy glow. My hands, your bones. Loose up, we break the scene. One step deep as you fall to me. High clap, we skip a beat. Count 1, 2, 3. And don't you slide the music, get into it. Won't you dance with me? Find your place and